Sometimes, the smallest feet leave the deepest footprints, especially when they run, not away from fear, but straight toward hope. Officer Michael Grant had just taken his first sip of lukewarm gas station coffee when he saw her. A small blur of pink darting across the empty sidewalk, her steps light but urgent, breaking the silence of a Portland sunrise. He was parked on the corner of Northeast 63rd and Halsey Street, engine humming softly, listening to dispatch chatter that didn't concern him. The city was still rubbing its eyes, bleary and quiet. But the little girl, she didn't match the morning. She was barefoot, wearing a crumpled pink dress, a teddy bear clenched in one arm like a life preserver. And her wide, freckled face was flushed, not from fear, but from running hard. Michael opened his car door. The girl didn't stop until she reached him, her breath ragged, curls sticking to her damp forehead. "Please," she said, voice thin but clear. "Please follow me. It's my mom." Michael crouched, lowering himself to eye level. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" The girl shook her head quickly. "No, but Mama's not waking up. Please come. She's not like this usually." He didn't hesitate. "What's your name?" "Lucy. Lucy Harper." "How old are you, Lucy?" "7. We just moved here last month. Mama's sick, but she's always better in the mornings." Michael keyed in his radio, alerting dispatch of his location, then grabbed his jacket. "Let's go," he said. She reached out instinctively, taking his hand like she'd done it 100 times before. It was warm, small, but steady. They ran 3 blocks. Lucy led him with purpose, weaving through quiet streets lined with aging maples and modest homes. The sun was just beginning to scatter gold across the pavement. When they reached a narrow one-story house with peeling blue paint and flower pots knocked over on the porch, Lucy let go of his hand. "She's inside. I couldn't lift her." Michael stepped forward carefully. The door was slightly ajar. He drew in a breath. "Portland Police!" he called out, gently pushing the door open. The house was still, clean, but silent in a way that didn't feel right. And then, he saw it. A dark, drying smear of blood on the kitchen floor near the fridge. Faint, but not old. Michael's eyes swept the space quickly. No signs of struggle, no broken furniture, just the echo of something wrong. He followed the hallway until he found her. A woman lay motionless on the living room carpet, one hand curled beneath her head, the other outstretched toward a toppled glass of water. Her skin was pale, and her breathing shallow but present. "Ma'am?" Michael dropped to one knee, checking her pulse. Weak, but there. "Lucy," he called gently. "Your mom's going to be okay. I need to get help right now." Lucy stood at the hallway entrance, trembling but silent. "Was she like this when you woke up?" he asked. Lucy nodded. "She didn't eat dinner last night, just told me to brush my teeth and went to bed early." Michael reached for his radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Grant. I have a medical emergency. Female, approximately 30s, unconscious but breathing. Request EMS to 11224 East Skidmore, code 2. Minor child present." He placed a reassuring hand on Lucy's shoulder. "You did the right thing, Lucy. You were so brave." She blinked up at him, eyes welling. "She's not gonna die, right?" "No," he said with conviction he wasn't entirely sure of yet. "Not on my watch." Within minutes, the soft wail of the ambulance broke the morning stillness. Michael guided the paramedics inside, briefing them quickly. Lucy stood beside him, holding her bear so tightly its stitched arm twisted sideways. "Any known medical history?" one paramedic asked. "She mentioned her mom is sick," Michael replied. We'll need to notify child services, but I'll stay with the girl until they arrive. Rachel Harper, according to the mail on the counter, was loaded into the ambulance. Lucy climbed in after her without question, settling on the bench beside her mother's stretcher. Michael climbed in too, the bear in his hands now, returning it to Lucy. Hang on to this, he said, and to hope. As the doors closed and the city rose behind them, Michael looked at the little girl who had run through dawn to save her mother, and knew with a quiet certainty that something in his life had just changed. The sirens weren't loud inside the ambulance, but Lucy still covered her ears. She sat stiffly on the bench beside her mother's stretcher, teddy bear clenched in her lap. Her legs dangled above the floor, swinging just enough to betray the nervous energy she didn't know how to hide. Michael sat across from her, one steady hand braced on the metal wall as the vehicle swayed. Rachel Harper hadn't stirred. Her face was pale beneath the fluorescent lights, lips dry, eyes closed, a sheen of sweat collecting at her temple. One paramedic adjusted the IV, another monitored her heart rate. Michael kept his eyes on Lucy. The little girl didn't cry. She didn't ask questions. But her grip on that bear, it spoke volumes. Almost there, Michael said gently. Lucy gave a small nod, as if she had to be strong now for all three of them, herself, the bear, and her mother. Portland Adventist Medical Center. A blur of motion, nurses, beeping monitors, rapid-fire questions. Rachel was wheeled away into the ER, lost behind double doors before Lucy had time to reach out. Michael caught her by instinct as she surged forward. You can't go in there right now, he said, crouching beside her. But they're going to do everything they can to help her. Lucy turned to him slowly. She didn't take her medicine last night. Michael's breath caught. What kind of medicine? I don't know the name, Lucy whispered. But she takes it every morning. Except, we ran out. He made a mental note. Medication. Possibly chronic. And then for the first time, fear flickered across Lucy's freckled face. She told me not to worry, she said. She always says that. But I think she's been sicker than I knew. Michael stood and guided her to the waiting area, where beige chairs and vending machines offered no comfort at all. He handed her a juice box from the break room, then walked to the admitting nurse. I brought in a patient, he said. Rachel Harper, found unconscious at home. Her daughter says she's missed medication. They just moved here. Probably no primary care on file. The nurse nodded and typed quickly. We'll flag it. Do you have next of kin info? Michael looked over his shoulder at Lucy, her little legs swinging again as she quietly sipped the juice. No father mentioned, and no relatives listed in the system. The nurse frowned. Without paperwork or insurance, we're going to have trouble accessing full labs or admission coverage. Understood, Michael said. Just do what you can for now. I'll work on the rest. He returned to Lucy, who was staring up at a poster on the wall. Healing happens here. She pointed to it. Will that be true for Mama? Michael knelt beside her. I think so. But I need to make sure you're okay too. I might have to call someone to come sit with you. Lucy's expression changed instantly, from brave to panicked. No, she said quickly. Please don't call anyone. Why not? Because they'll take me away, she said, voice cracking. I heard Mama say it on the phone. If something happens and no one's there, they'll send someone. Michael swallowed hard. Lucy, he said carefully, I'm not here to take you away. I'm just trying to help. She looked at him for a long time. Eyes so big, they seemed older than 7 years. Then she said something he didn't expect. You smell like the kind of person Mama said we could trust. Michael blinked. What does that smell like? Like soap, and outside, and someone who keeps promises. He couldn't help the faint smile that crept to his lips. That's a pretty good description. He stood again and stepped aside to make a call. Not to child services. Not yet. First, his mother. Martha, it's me. I need a favor. Her voice was sharp, always a step ahead. Is it about a child? Yes. Her name's Lucy. 7 years old. Her mother's in the ER and there's no family listed. I found them this morning. Emergency situation. You bringing her home? Martha asked. Michael hesitated. Just for the night, until social services catch up. I'll get the guest room ready, she said. You already know the rules. Michael ended the call and turned back just as a nurse approached. She's stable, the nurse said. Her labs suggest severe lupus flare, possibly from medication discontinuation. We're admitting her to ICU for monitoring. She was severely dehydrated. Did she have insurance? He asked. None on file, but we're filing an emergency Medicaid eval. Michael nodded. What about the daughter? The nurse glanced at Lucy. We contacted the Department of Human Services. A representative is en route. Michael looked down at Lucy again. Her head was tilted against the seat now, the juice box empty in her lap, Bear resting across her legs. But her eyes were open. Watching, listening, always listening. He stepped back over and crouched beside her. Hey, Lucy. The hospital's going to take care of your mom, but it might be a while. I was thinking, maybe you could come with me to my house for a bit. Her brow furrowed. Why? So you don't have to stay here alone, and I know someone who makes the best pancakes in Portland. Who? My mom, Martha. She used to be a nurse, and she loves bears. Lucy looked down at hers. Would we come back to see Mama? Absolutely, as soon as they let visitors in. She hesitated, then slowly nodded. Okay, just for one night. Michael exhaled, stood up, and gave the nurse a firm look. I'm filing this under emergency placement protocol. DHS can reach me directly. You know that's bending it, she said. He didn't flinch. I'll take responsibility. As he took Lucy's small hand in his, leading her out of the emergency wing, he felt the strange, quiet tug of something deeper than duty. He didn't know it yet, but the girl who ran to him at sunrise was already rewriting his life, one small, determined step at a time. Martha Grant was already standing on the porch when Michael pulled into the driveway. She had one hand on her hip, the other holding a dish towel, and an eyebrow arched high enough to belong to a retired ER nurse who had seen everything, and still found room to disapprove. Michael stepped out first. She's 7, he said before she could speak. Her name is Lucy Harper. Her mom's in the ICU. And yes, I filed an emergency placement form. Martha's eyes softened as soon as Lucy climbed down from the patrol car, still hugging her bear. Hi, sweetheart, Martha said, walking forward slowly, gently. You must be Lucy. Lucy didn't speak, but she didn't step back either. Just watched Martha carefully, her grip on the teddy bear a little tighter. Michael touched her shoulder. This is my mom. She's like the boss of pancakes around here. Martha crouched down to Lucy's level. I made too many tonight. Think you can help me with that? A pause, then a small nod. Michael exhaled. Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon and coffee. Warm, familiar, lived in. Family photos lined the mantel. A crocheted throw blanket was draped over the couch. The guest room door stood open, a quilt folded neatly on the bed, a nightlight glowing softly in the corner. Lucy didn't say much at first. She sat quietly at the table while Martha served up pancakes with fresh berries and syrup. Michael sipped coffee and watched, amazed at how, despite the quiet, Lucy took everything in. Every movement, every voice, every detail. Halfway through her plate, she asked, "Do I have to sleep in a hospital room tomorrow?" Martha answered gently, "No, honey. You'll sleep here. With us. At least until your mama gets better." Lucy chewed slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't like new places." Michael met her eyes. "Me neither. But this one's safe." That night, as they tucked her into the guest bed, Lucy looked at the nightlight. "It's shaped like a moon," she said. Michael smiled. "That one's been around a long time. It was mine when I was little." "You were little?" "Believe it or not," he said, grinning. "I was. Mom kept that light just in case we ever had someone special stay over." Martha smoothed the blanket over Lucy's legs. "And here you are." Lucy hesitated, then reached under her pillow and pulled out a folded drawing. Crayon lines, shaky but clear. A picture of her mom, and a house with 3 windows. "This is where we were going to live," she said. "But it didn't happen." Michael took the drawing carefully. "Did you draw this?" Lucy nodded. "Do you think maybe you'd draw our house tomorrow?" "Why?" "So we can hang it on the fridge," he said. "So you know you have a spot here." Lucy didn't smile, but her eyes warmed, and that was more than enough. The next morning, Michael checked in at the station to update his report. He kept it brief, clean, official. The DHS visit was scheduled for that afternoon. Back home, Lucy was helping Martha water the garden, her pink dress swapped for one of Martha's old flannel shirts, belted like a robe. She held the hose like it was a sword, targeting each daisy with precision. "She hasn't asked once about leaving," Martha said quietly to Michael, out of earshot. "She's smart," he replied. "She knows it's temporary, but she's hoping it's not." Martha studied him. "And you?" Michael looked at the little girl soaking the rose bushes and laughing for the first time. "I haven't decided." But part of him already had. That afternoon, a knock came at the door. Maria Flores stood in crisp business attire, a DHS badge clipped to her blazer, but her eyes were kind, not just trained that way. She was in her early 40s, Latina, warm but sharp. "Officer Grant," she said. "I reviewed your file. I understand this was an emergency decision?" "Yes. Her mother is in ICU. No next of kin listed. And Lucy made it very clear she didn't want to be alone in the system." Maria nodded. "Is the mother cooperative?" "She hasn't regained full consciousness, but the hospital says she's stabilizing." Maria followed him inside. Martha greeted her with calm warmth and offered tea. Lucy sat on the couch with her bear, watching carefully. Maria crouched down in front of her. "Hi, Lucy. I'm Maria. I work with families when someone's hurt or sick. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions?" Lucy looked to Michael, who nodded gently. "Okay," she said. "Do you feel safe here?" Lucy nodded. "Do you like Michael and Martha?" "Yes," she said softly. "They have pancakes." Maria smiled. "That's very important. Do you want to stay here until your mom gets better?" Lucy hesitated, and then, very deliberately, took her crayon drawing from the coffee table and handed it over. A new picture. 3 people holding hands. Lucy, her mom, and Michael. The house behind them had a moon in the window. "I want this house to be in my next picture too," she whispered. Maria looked up at Michael. "Well, that tells me everything." That evening, after the visit, Michael stared at the document Maria had left behind. Emergency foster placement approval. 72 hours, pending parental status. It wasn't an adoption. It wasn't permanent. But it was a promise. And sometimes, that was enough. As the sun dipped behind the Grant home, Lucy fell asleep in the guest room. Moonlight spilling in, Bear tucked beside her, crayon marks smudged on her fingers. And in the living room, Michael folded the paper, looked at his mother, and said quietly, "I think I'm in this, Ma. Not just for a few days." Martha nodded, her voice quiet. "You always were. You just didn't know it yet." Rain came hard that morning. Thick sheets drumming against the kitchen window, turning the garden to a blur of color and movement. Lucy sat at the table in Michael's flannel shirt again, oversized sleeves bunched at her elbows. She was drawing with intense focus, her tongue peeking slightly between her lips, crayons scattered like a rainbow battlefield. Michael poured coffee, watching her from across the counter, wondering how such a small human could take up so much space in his mind after only 2 days. "She's in," Martha said as she hung up the phone, her voice cautious but hopeful. "Rachel's stable enough for visitors today. ICU room 8, Portland Adventist." Michael exhaled. "That's something." Lucy looked up. "Can we go see Mama?" He nodded. "Soon, but I need to find something first." Martha turned. "What?" "The missing paperwork. Rachel doesn't exist in any formal system. No ID, no insurance, no primary care records. I need to find out what went wrong, before DHS does." Michael drove back to Rachel's house with a key borrowed from the hospital. It was still and quiet, the air musty now, the house waiting like it was holding its breath. He moved from room to room carefully. The place was clean but sparsely lived in. No framed photos, no kitchen clutter, just the essentials: toothbrush, rice cooker, Lucy's bedroll on the floor beside her mother's. In a cardboard box beside the couch, he found what he was looking for. An accordion folder marked "Important," bulging with mail, hospital brochures, scribbled notes, and one crumpled envelope from her former employer. He sat down on the floor and began sorting. There it was, a bright yellow file, plastic, worn at the edges, labeled United Care, Medical and Housing. Inside, a discharge form from a hospital in Spokane, her lupus diagnosis, old prescriptions, a rent termination notice, and most importantly, a letter from the Oregon Department of Human Services marked in red. Application incomplete. No valid ID or proof of residency. He frowned. There was a receipt from a moving company dated 3 months earlier. It seemed Rachel had fled Spokane in a hurry. No forwarding address, no time to renew documentation. And then, at the bottom, a case number and a misfiled notation. Risk of parental abandonment. Status, escalated. Michael's blood chilled. That wasn't just a clerical mistake. That was a ticking time bomb. If DHS saw that, they could fast-track Lucy into the system under the assumption that Rachel had left her behind. He grabbed the yellow file and the envelope, stuffed them into his bag, and locked the house behind him. Time to find someone who could undo this. At the downtown DHS office, Maria Flores looked up as Michael entered, soaked from the rain, folder in hand. "I'm not scheduled for you today, Officer Grant." "I know," he said, "but you need to see this." They sat in her shared cubicle. She sifted through the documents, eyes narrowing. "I've seen this kind of mix-up before," she murmured. Spokane System flagged the file incomplete, and the abandonment note probably got added automatically when no follow-up occurred. Michael leaned forward. She didn't abandon her daughter. She moved here because she was sick and scared and had no one, and now she's unconscious, and that note is still active in the system. What happens if another caseworker sees it? Maria sighed. Worst case scenario? They treat it as a prior offense. Remove Lucy permanently. Rachel would have to fight for reunification. That's not justice, he said. That's paperwork running lives. Maria closed the folder and stood. Follow me. Maria led him down a hallway to the back wing, past the gray waiting room and institutional lighting, into a secured records room. She scanned the barcode on the file and sat down at the terminal. Let's see if we can flag this for reclassification under medical emergency transfer. Michael waited, heart pounding as her fingers moved over the keys. A few moments passed. Got it, Maria said finally. I submitted a correction request and attached your field report and the hospital records. The red flag should be lifted in 24 hours, but I'll escalate it for priority. Michael let out a breath. Thank you. Maria looked up. You're breaking a few lines here, you know. Officers aren't supposed to get this involved. I didn't plan to, he said. But Lucy did. She nodded once, her voice low. She's the kind of kid who makes you want to cross lines. That afternoon, Michael and Lucy walked into the ICU wing, the yellow file now sealed in his briefcase, corrected, cleared, and finally telling the right story. Rachel was awake, barely. Her lips were dry and her voice hoarse. Lucy rushed forward, tears welling instantly. Mama! Rachel tried to sit up. Baby, I'm so sorry. Michael stepped in. Don't. She knows you didn't mean for this to happen, and she saved you. Rachel reached for Lucy's hand, eyes glassy. I tried, Mike. I tried so hard. I had no one. I couldn't get the meds without ID, and then I got so tired. I didn't think it would happen like this. Michael placed the yellow file gently on her tray table. Let me help you fix it. She looked at him, surprised. Why would you do that? He glanced at Lucy, now drawing hearts on her mother's blanket. Because your daughter runs toward help. That means someone raised her right. Rachel closed her eyes, a tear sliding down. Will they take her? She asked quietly. No, Michael said. Not if I can help it. You've got time. 14 days. And I'll make sure you get the documents you need. Rachel gripped his hand. Her voice cracked. I don't want to lose her. Michael looked at her squarely. Then let's start making sure you don't. That night, back at the Grant home, Lucy handed Michael a new drawing. It was of a yellow folder with a smiley face drawn on it, and above it, no more wrong papers. He pinned it to the fridge next to her other pictures. And for the first time since this began, he believed her story might just get the ending it deserved. It started with a knock. 3 short, firm raps at the front door, the kind that didn't ask for permission. The kind that announced, I have authority here. Michael was halfway through packing Lucy's school lunch. It was her first morning returning to class since Rachel was hospitalized, and they'd agreed to keep it low-key. Martha had braided Lucy's hair into twin buns, and Michael had cut strawberries into little hearts, though he'd never admit it. He glanced toward the living room where Lucy was putting on her backpack. Then came the second knock, louder this time. Michael opened the door. The man on the porch wore a gray suit so precisely pressed it looked afraid of wrinkles. His coat was barely wet, even though the Portland rain hadn't let up. Hair neatly combed, shoes polished. He held a leather briefcase, and behind the steel-rimmed glasses, his eyes were cold and practiced. "Officer Michael Grant?" "That's me." "I'm Bradley Evans. I'm Lucy Harper's biological father." Michael didn't blink. "I wasn't aware she had one." Bradley gave a tight, humorless smile. "Well, I'm here to change that." Lucy froze when she saw him. Her backpack slipped halfway off one shoulder. Bradley crouched, not low enough, and extended a hand like a man meeting a client at a boardroom table. "Hello, Lucy. I'm your dad." She didn't move, didn't speak. Michael stepped beside her. "Lucy, it's okay. You can say whatever you feel." Lucy stared at the man's hand, then whispered, "No, you're not." Bradley stood, brushing off invisible dust from his slacks. "I understand this is a surprise, but I've already spoken with DHS. I'm filing for temporary custody. Given the mother's current medical state and your lack of legal guardianship, I believe it's in Lucy's best interest to be with her biological parent." Martha appeared in the hallway, arms crossed. Bradley continued, "I live in Seattle. I'm a practicing attorney. I have no prior record, a stable home, and financial means. Rachel and I were together for 2 years. I did not know she was pregnant until 2 weeks ago when I received a call from an old mutual friend who saw her name on a patient registry." Michael's voice was steel. "You abandoned her." "I was never informed," Bradley replied coolly. "There's a difference." Lucy stepped forward. Her voice was trembling but sharp. "You weren't there. When Mama got sick. When we moved. When we ran out of money. You weren't there when I cried because I thought she was dying." Bradley looked down at her, clearly unprepared for such directness. Michael placed a hand on Lucy's shoulder. "Why now?" Bradley didn't answer. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a court motion. "I've scheduled an emergency hearing. Tomorrow. I will be requesting full temporary custody while the mother is incapacitated." At the hospital, Rachel was sitting up for the first time in days. Her cheeks were still pale, but her voice was stronger. She blinked in disbelief when Michael told her. "Brad came?" she whispered. "He said he's Lucy's father." Rachel leaned back against the pillows, tears stinging her eyes. "I was 26. We were dating. When I told him I was pregnant, he laughed. Said he wasn't ready for that kind of mistake. He gave me money to take care of it, and vanished." Michael's jaw tightened. Rachel swallowed. "I kept Lucy. I worked double shifts. We were okay until the lupus hit hard. I didn't tell anyone because he made me feel like she didn't matter." Michael reached for her hand. "You don't have to justify anything, but the court's going to want proof." "He's her biological father," she said bitterly. "That's enough for some judges." "Not this time," Michael said. "Not if I can help it." The courtroom the next day was cold and gray, like the city itself. Lucy sat beside Michael, swinging her feet above the floor. Rachel had been granted a medical transport order to attend the hearing in a wheelchair. Maria Flores sat behind them, scribbling in a DHS notebook. Bradley arrived with a team of 2 associates, lawyers in tailored suits who moved like sharks through water. When the judge entered, the room fell silent. Bradley was the first to speak. "I am requesting temporary custody of Lucy Harper on the grounds that I am her biological father, and her current guardians are acting outside the bounds of legal authority. Her mother is medically incapacitated. The officer has no familial claim. The judge turned to Rachel. Ms. Harper, is this man the child's father? Rachel nodded, eyes burning. Yes, but he hasn't seen her since before she was born. Bradley interjected. Your Honor, I was never informed of the pregnancy. I was denied the right to be a father. I am here now to correct that mistake. Lucy stood. Without being prompted, without looking at Michael. Just stood, trembling but tall. Can I say something? She asked. The judge nodded gently. Lucy's voice quivered, but her words were steady. My home is where I'm loved. That's with Mama, and also with Officer Michael. He stayed when you didn't. You didn't come when we needed you. I don't want to go with you just because you're here now. A hush swept the courtroom. The judge leaned forward. Lucy, thank you. That was very brave. She looked down at her notes, then back at the room. Given the circumstances, I am granting continued temporary placement of Lucy Harper with Officer Grant under the Emergency Guardian Protocol. Ms. Harper's parental rights are still intact, contingent upon completion of documentation within the next 14 days. Mr. Evans, should you wish to pursue custody, it must be through a formal petition for parental acknowledgement, not an emergency hearing. Bradley didn't speak. His jaw tightened, hands clenched around his papers. Rachel reached for Lucy as they wheeled her out of the courtroom, pulling her daughter into her lap. They wept together in the hallway, surrounded by people who finally heard their story. That evening, Michael sat on the porch, watching dusk settle over the yard. Lucy came out quietly, holding a small paper crown made of folded receipts and ribbons. What's that? He asked. It's for you, she said, because today you were the kind of brave Mama tells stories about. He let her place it on his head. Martha peeked through the window, smiling. And just like that, on a quiet porch in Portland, something unspoken passed between a child and a man who was no longer just a police officer, but something more permanent, more sacred, chosen family. The courthouse felt colder the second time. The same gray walls, the same metal detectors, but this time Lucy's hand was tucked firmly into Michael's, and she wasn't trembling. She had braided her own hair that morning, 2 uneven plaits tied with mismatched rubber bands, and wore a navy dress Martha had let her pick from the church donation bin. Rachel was wheeled in behind them by a hospital volunteer, cheeks still pale, but this time with a scarf wrapped gently around her neck and color in her lips. Michael's badge was clipped to his belt, but he hadn't worn the uniform. Not today. He came as a witness, not an officer, as someone who loved a little girl, and the woman who had fought silently for too long. Maria Flores waited inside the courtroom along with a new face, an attorney assigned to Rachel's case through the Legal Aid Society. Young, sharp, and nervous, she clutched her notes like a lifeline. Michael Grant, Martha Grant, the judge began. You are here today in capacity as emergency placement guardians for Lucy Harper. Rachel Harper, the biological mother, is present and requesting the re-establishment of full custody, pending submission of corrected identification, health clearance, and housing status. Rachel nodded, voice clear. Yes, Your Honor. The judge looked down at the file. And as of this morning, we've received the hospital's documentation, confirmation of Medicaid activation, and verification of corrected DHS errors regarding parental risk status. She glanced at Maria, who stood and confirmed the updates. So, the judge continued, what remains is the matter of Lucy's expressed wishes and the testimony of the current guardians. I understand Lucy would like to speak. Rachel looked nervous. Michael gave a quiet nod to Lucy. The little girl stood, small but certain, and walked to the front where a small wooden stool had been placed for her. She climbed onto it, feet swinging. Her voice, when it came, was soft. "Hi, I'm Lucy Harper. I'm 7. I used to be scared a lot, but now I'm mostly okay." There was a gentle rustle of smiles in the courtroom. "I love my mom," she said clearly. "She's the bravest person I know. Even when she was sick, she didn't let me see how scared she was. She told me stories about wolves and stars and people who didn't give up." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "But when she couldn't wake up that day, I ran. I ran because I didn't know what else to do." She turned to the judge. "And Officer Michael, he followed me. He didn't even know me, but he came. And his mom, Martha, gave me pancakes and let me sleep with her old nightlight." Laughter, soft, emotional, echoed. "I don't want to lose my mom. I want to be with her. But if she ever gets sick again, I want to stay with Michael and Martha too. I don't want to go to strangers. I want to stay where I feel safe." She hesitated, then leaned closer to the microphone and whispered, "Please don't take us apart again. We're a team now." The judge leaned back, fingers folded beneath her chin. She looked to Michael. "Officer Grant, you signed an emergency placement form. Why?" Michael stood, straightened his jacket. "I didn't have to, but I saw something that morning. A child who didn't run away from trouble but toward help. And a mother who'd sacrificed everything to keep her daughter safe even when the system failed her. That kind of family deserves a chance to stay together. And if that means Martha and I help carry the load, then we're ready." The judge nodded. "And your mother, Ms. Martha Grant, do you wish to add anything?" Martha stood. "I raised a son who knows when to bend a rule for the right reason," she said proudly. "And I've seen enough heartbeats and fear in the ER to know what real family looks like. This little girl is part of ours now, and we'd be honored to help keep that bond intact." The judge tapped her pen twice. "In light of the child's wishes, the corrected documentation, the DHS recommendations, and the testimony of all present, I am approving the reunification plan. Lucy Harper will return full-time to her mother's care under supervised transition for the next 14 days. During that time, emergency guardians Michael and Martha Grant are approved as backup caregivers under conditional kinship status." Rachel gasped. Lucy spun on the stool, eyes wide. "That means I get to stay with Mama?" The judge smiled. "Yes, and visit your pancakes whenever you'd like." The courtroom chuckled. Lucy launched herself into Rachel's lap, knocking the wheelchair slightly. They clung to each other, mother and daughter, whole again. Bradley Evans, notably absent, had not filed any follow-up paperwork. His case had been shelved, and no one missed him. Later that evening, back at home, Rachel sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, watching Lucy water the flower beds with Martha. "She talks about the moon nightlight like it's magic," she said to Michael, sipping tea. "I didn't think I'd ever see her this happy again." Michael leaned on the porch railing. "She makes everything glow," he said quietly. Rachel turned to him. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," he replied. "But there's something we should talk about." She looked at him, cautious. "I've been thinking," he continued, "about applying for a formal kinship placement. Nothing to take her from you, but just something legal. So if anything ever happens again—" Rachel nodded. "I was going to ask you the same." They watched Lucy laugh, chasing a butterfly across the yard. "She'll always have you," Rachel whispered. "And she'll always have you," Michael replied. And for the first time in years, Rachel Harper didn't feel like she was fighting alone. The elevator chimed softly as it opened to the second floor of Portland Adventist's Community Outreach Wing. Rachel Harper adjusted her scarf and gripped the armrest of her wheelchair as the volunteer helped roll her forward. She could walk short distances now, but today was long, and her body was still learning to trust itself again. At the end of the hallway was a door with frosted glass and bold black letters. Patient Navigation and Advocacy Office, Low-Income Medical Access Program, Room 203. She took a deep breath. Behind that door was something she hadn't had in a long time, a job interview. "Rachel Harper?" the woman greeted her, stepping forward with a warm smile and a file in hand. She wore scrubs under a white lab coat, a pin that read, "Health is a Human Right" on her collar. "I'm Dr. Karen Meisner. I run the navigation unit here. Thanks for coming in." Rachel offered a handshake, her fingers still a little cold. "Thank you for seeing me," she said. Karen sat down across from her and opened the file. "I read your intake. You've been through a lot these past few months. Lupus, relocation, single parenting, and still, no hospital complaints on your record. No missed pediatric appointments for your daughter. You're remarkably resilient." Rachel shifted in her seat. "I wasn't always. There were days I thought I'd disappear." Karen looked up. "That's exactly why we need someone like you. This job is about people falling through the cracks and helping them climb back out." Rachel blinked. "Wait, you're offering the position?" Karen smiled. "We're offering a 3-month pilot placement as a patient advocate navigator. Paid stipend. Flexible hours. You'll work with mothers, patients on Medicaid, and especially those caught between care and chaos. You know that space intimately." Rachel's throat tightened. "But I'm not certified. I don't even have a college degree." "We're not hiring a degree," Karen replied. "We're hiring a voice that's been there." Her first day was quiet. Rachel was assigned a small desk next to a bulletin board filled with pamphlets. How to apply for emergency insurance, chronic illness and single parenting, housing support services. She wore a borrowed blouse, printed out extra copies of her intake forms, and carried a fresh notebook with "Start Again" written across the top in Lucy's handwriting. By noon, she met her first case. A woman named Sandra, early 30s, slumped in the waiting chair with tear-stained cheeks and a toddler clinging to her leg. "Ms. Harper?" she whispered. "They said I could talk to you?" Rachel stood slowly, guiding her in. Sandra had been denied her hypertension medication for 3 weeks due to insurance reauthorization issues. She had no ID, no support, and had missed work 3 times. "I'm going to help," Rachel said simply. She pulled out her DHS contact list, the same one Maria Flores once used for her. She called a clinic directly, scheduled a reauthorization check, printed out the emergency waiver form, and sat beside Sandra as she filled it. "I used to sit in that same chair," Rachel said gently. "Terrified. Certain the world would keep spinning without me. But it didn't. It waited." Sandra looked up, eyes wide, and smiled. That night, at the Grant home, Lucy came bouncing through the door, dropping her backpack and shouting, "Mama got a job!" Martha nearly dropped her casserole dish from excitement. Michael looked up from the dinner table. "You did?" Rachel nodded, sheepish. "It's part-time, but I'm helping people now. People like me." Lucy climbed onto the chair beside her. "She saved someone today, like real saving, not just helping carry groceries." Michael handed her a fork and grinned. "So you're officially on Team Rescue now?" "I guess I am," Rachel said. "And I think it's the first time I've felt useful in years." Michael raised a toast, with orange juice because Lucy insisted. to second chances, he said. Lucy added, to heroes who don't wear uniforms. And Rachel, laughing through sudden tears, whispered, to doorways that open when you finally stop knocking on the wrong ones. The next morning, Rachel walked into the hospital lobby early, a coffee in one hand and her badge in the other. On the elevator ride up, she met a teenage girl with bruised eyes and shaking hands, trying to fill out a form while holding her baby sister. Rachel didn't ask. She just reached out and gently said, come with me. We'll figure it out. And in that moment, she became something far more powerful than a patient. She became the one opening the door. It was quiet in the courtroom. Not tense, not heavy. Quiet. In the way sacred places often are, where something irreversible is about to happen and everyone feels it in their bones. Lucy sat between Michael and Martha on the wooden bench, her small hand cradled in Michael's. On the table in front of them were two documents, one with the Oregon state seal, and the other marked boldly at the top, Kinship Guardianship Petition, Grant Family. Across the aisle, Rachel sat in her wheelchair, wearing a simple navy blouse and jeans. Her hair, though still thin from illness, was brushed and held back by a silver clip, the one Lucy had picked out at the corner pharmacy. Her hands trembled slightly as she flipped through the papers, but her eyes never wavered. Judge Wilcox cleared her throat. We're here today to finalize a petition filed jointly by Officer Michael Grant and Ms. Martha Grant, with the consent of biological mother Rachel Harper, for formal kinship guardianship of minor Lucy Harper. She looked up at the parties. Is everyone ready? Michael nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Rachel's voice was clear. We are. Lucy whispered to Martha, does this mean I have two homes? Martha squeezed her hand. It means you have one home, with many arms around it. The judge turned to Rachel. Ms. Harper, as Lucy's biological and legal parent, you retain full parental rights. This kinship agreement does not remove your role as mother. It simply adds additional guardians, family, chosen and trusted, to be legally recognized in Lucy's life. Do you understand? Rachel nodded. I do. Do you consent? Rachel turned to Michael. Her voice cracked, but held. I consent, with gratitude. The judge motioned to the bailiff, who brought forward the first pen. Michael Grant, please sign. Michael stepped forward, took the pen, and signed with deliberate strokes. It was the first time he had written his name in a space labeled Guardian. He felt it like a brand on his chest, not heavy, but deep. Martha Grant. Martha's signature was swift, practiced, a nurse's handwriting, firm and neat. She stood tall, chin lifted with quiet pride. Then the judge looked to Rachel. Final confirmation. Rachel wheeled herself forward. Her hand trembled slightly as she took the pen, but her voice was steady. Today, I give my daughter more than protection, she said aloud. I give her roots, and people who stayed. She signed. The judge stamped the page. Order granted. Lucy Harper is now under joint kinship guardianship with the Grant family. The courtroom didn't erupt in applause, but it didn't need to. Because at that moment, Lucy stood, reached into her backpack, and pulled out a folded drawing. She walked up to the judge and handed it to her. 3 figures. A woman in a wheelchair, a man in a blue jacket, and a gray-haired lady in an apron. In the center, a girl holding all their hands, the caption written in purple crayon, "This is where my life began again." Outside the courthouse, the sky broke into sunlight for the first time in days. Michael lifted Lucy onto his shoulders as they crossed the street, and Martha waved at a passing bus. her smile wider than anyone had seen in years. Rachel wheeled beside them, breathing in deeply, like the air itself tasted different now. They stopped at a small cafe nearby, one with pancakes and floral tablecloths. Lucy ordered for everyone, standing on tiptoes at the counter. "I'll have 2 chocolate chip pancakes. My mom wants lemon, my grandma wants banana, and my police dad, he'll eat whatever I don't finish." The waitress blinked. "Your what?" Lucy turned, completely unbothered. "My police dad. It's a real thing." Michael chuckled. "Guess it is now." That night, back at the Grant house, Lucy stood in front of the refrigerator. She carefully removed one of her older crayon drawings, the one with the crooked house, and replaced it with a new one. A house with 4 windows this time, a garden, a wheelchair ramp, a tiny badge above the front door. And over it, in bright block letters, Harper Grant Home. Michael noticed and walked over. "You want to frame that one?" Lucy nodded. "I think it belongs on the wall now, not just the fridge." He knelt beside her. "I think you're right." And in that quiet moment, with the dishes in the sink and the scent of pancakes still in the air, the house finally felt like what it had become. A family. Not perfect, not traditional, but real. And finally, permanent. The classroom smelled like crayons and dry erase markers and a little bit of peanut butter. The scent of 2nd grade. It was Family and Community Heroes Week at Meadowview Elementary, and every child had been asked to prepare a short presentation about someone they considered their personal hero. Posters lined the walls, dads in military uniforms, grandmas who made quilts for the homeless, sisters who helped read books to younger siblings. There was even a cardboard cutout of a dentist holding a toothbrush like a sword. When it was Lucy's turn, her teacher, Ms. Hammond, smiled and tapped the smartboard. "And now we have something very special. Lucy Harper would like to share her story." Lucy stepped forward. Her blue dress swayed slightly as she walked. In one hand, she carried a large piece of poster board. In the other, a folded drawing. She stood in front of the class, took a breath, and began. "My hero doesn't wear a cape. He wears a blue jacket and smells like fresh coffee and rain. He came when I asked for help, even though I was a stranger. And he didn't just help me that day. He stayed." She unfolded the drawing and held it up. It was a house. A moon-shaped nightlight glowing from one window, a garden, and 4 people, a girl, a mom, a grandma with a teacup, and a man with a badge. "My name is Lucy Harper, and I have a story." The classroom fell into complete stillness. She continued. "Last month, my mama got very sick. She didn't wake up. I ran down the street and found a police officer. I asked him to follow me home, and he did. He didn't ask me why. He just came." Ms. Hammond placed a hand over her heart. Lucy went on. "He brought me to his house while Mama was in the hospital. His mom made pancakes. Their house smelled like lemon soap and warm blankets. I slept in a room with a moonlight. I wasn't scared anymore." She paused. "Then one day a man came and said he was my dad. But I didn't know him. He hadn't been there when we needed someone. But Officer Michael had." Now, even some of the parents sitting in the back had stopped scrolling on their phones. Lucy looked down at her poster board and turned it around. It was divided into 3 parts. My mama, my police dad, my grandma Martha, each with hand-drawn hearts and short sentences. My mama tells me stories when I'm scared. My police dad followed me home and didn't leave. My grandma Martha makes tea and always listens. She turned back to the class. I don't think families need to match. I don't think you have to look like someone to love them, or be born in the same house to belong there. She took a deep breath. My family is a story that started with a whisper, and now I get to tell it out loud. When she finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Then applause. Not the polite classroom kind, but the kind that rises in waves from teachers, parents, classmates, even the custodian standing in the hallway. Ms. Hammond wiped a tear and hugged Lucy, careful not to crush the poster board. That afternoon, Michael and Rachel stood by the front gates when school let out. Martha waited in the car with a thermos of warm cider. Lucy came skipping toward them, her poster in one hand and a certificate in the other. Guess what? She beamed. I got most inspiring speech. Ms. Hammond said I used my heart as my microphone. Michael crouched. Did you tell them about the pancakes? Lucy giggled. I told them everything. Rachel knelt slowly beside her. I'm proud of you, baby. You turned our hardest moment into a gift. Lucy looked at her mother. You did that first. You were the one who never gave up. She turned to Michael. And you were the one who showed me I didn't have to do it alone. Then she paused and looked at both of them. Can I say something weird? Michael grinned. Those are your specialty. Lucy pulled out a second drawing, one she hadn't shown the class. It was a heart, broken in the middle, but stitched together with crayon threads. Inside were 3 names: Mom, Michael, Martha. She pointed. This is my real voice, the one that doesn't need a microphone. That evening, at home, Lucy sat at the kitchen table helping Martha peel apples for a pie. Rachel typed emails from her laptop, responding to families at the hospital who needed help navigating new medical bills. Michael leaned in the doorway, watching them, this strange, imperfect, beautiful unit they had become. There were no blood ties. No legal contracts could capture the feeling. But the house was alive, not just with noise and laughter and messy drawings, but with belonging, with love, with Lucy's voice ringing through the walls and halls and hearts of everyone she touched. The first rays of spring filtered through the kitchen window, painting the countertops gold. Rachel stirred pancake batter while humming under her breath, a tune she used to sing to Lucy when the little girl was sick, back when their apartment had cracked walls and too many empty cabinets. But today everything was full, the fridge, the house, the hearts around her. Lucy sat at the table in a Harper Grant family t-shirt she'd helped design herself, drawing invitations with gel pens and sparkles. At the top of each paper, in her uneven handwriting, were the words, Family Anniversary, March 12th, the day I ran in the sunlight. Martha, wearing a flowered apron and her usual no-nonsense bun, chopped strawberries with precision that would have made any surgeon proud. Michael walked in, holding a small potted plant with yellow buds. What's this? Rachel asked, smiling. It's a forsythia bush, he said, placing it on the windowsill. You said you wanted something that blooms early, like Lucy. Lucy beamed. So it's the family flower now? I vote yes, Martha added, but only if someone else remembers to water it. By noon, the house was buzzing. Neighbors dropped by with casseroles and lemonade. Rachel's colleagues from the patient advocacy office came with cards and shy smiles. Maria Flores brought a lemon pie and a framed copy of Lucy's DHS file, marked Reunification Complete. In the backyard, Michael had hung twinkle lights between the trees. Martha set up folding chairs and a long table with a floral tablecloth. The cake read, To the day that changed everything. Lucy wore her pink dress, the same one from that morning a year ago, now an inch shorter. The teddy bear, patched and beloved, sat beside her on the table like an honored guest. When everyone had eaten and laughed and shared stories, Rachel stood and tapped her glass gently. "Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Harper. Some of you know me as the girl who vanished from the system, or the lupus patient who got lost in paperwork. But today, I want you to know me as Lucy's mom, and a woman who learned how to start over." She looked around the yard, her voice rich with quiet strength. This family began not with biology or money or plans. It began because one person chose to stop the car when a little girl asked him to, and because his mother knew that pancakes can heal more than just hunger, and because a child believed that love can be followed like a thread, even through the dark. She turned to Lucy, who had climbed into Michael's lap. "Thank you for saving me, baby." Lucy's voice carried clearly. "You saved me, too." Michael leaned forward, clearing his throat. "Actually, I think you saved all of us." As the sun dipped lower, the party thinned. Rachel and Michael took down the decorations while Martha washed dishes inside. Lucy wandered the garden, her pink shoes trailing through dandelions, until she stopped in front of the new forsythia bush. She bent down, placed a folded note in the soil beside it, and whispered something only the wind could hear. Later, when Michael came to check on her, she took his hand and pulled him down beside her. "What did you write?" he asked. Lucy grinned. "A secret. Can I know?" She leaned in close, pressing her lips to his ear. "I said, thank you for following me home." That night, before bed, Rachel tucked Lucy in and turned off the light. But Lucy asked for one more thing. "Leave the moonlight on," she said. Rachel did. Then Michael peeked in. "Mind if I say goodnight too?" Lucy sat up. "Actually, I have something." She reached under her pillow and pulled out a new drawing. This one was different. It was a quilt, stitched with crayons, patterned with pancakes, police badges, teacups, and flowers. At the center, a tiny running girl with sunlight all around her. And beneath it, words that made Rachel's breath catch. "You didn't just save my mom. You saved me. And I think we saved you too." Michael crouched beside the bed, his eyes shining. "You did," he said. Martha appeared at the door, silent, wiping her hands on her apron. She joined them by the bed, one hand on Lucy's foot. "I vote we frame this one," she said. Lucy smiled, her eyes already drooping. And as the moonlight spilled across the walls and the quilt of their strange, stitched-together life, the house felt whole in a way none of them had ever known. Not because it was big, not because it was perfect, but because it had been built, word by word, hand by hand, with love, and because in that home, under that roof, no one ran alone anymore. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this story. Not all families begin with blood. Sometimes they begin with a hug, a plate of pancakes, and a promise to never leave. If you believe love can heal anything, hit subscribe and join us for more heartwarming stories. See you in the next one.